Hi, everyone. We are continuing on with our Junie book, and we are on chapter 4, and it is called Diving. And when we left off, the kids are sitting around a circle in the classroom, and they all have bags called thankful bags that they took home, and they were supposed to bring in something that they were thankful for. So, this is called Diving. Mr. Scary, and Roger, remember, didn't do his homework, so he held up an empty bag. Mr. Scary stared at Roger for a long time, and he said they would talk about this later. Talk about this later is the school word for getting yelled at when there's more time. Roger slumped way down in his seat, and after that, Mr. Scary looked back at the class. Okay, everyone, we're going to continue now, he said, but this time, please raise your hand if you actually brought something in to show. Lucille sprang out of her chair. I did, she hollered. I brought the very best thing you ever saw. And then she reached down and she pulled a big giant purse out of her thankful bag. Wait till you see this, children, she said. I brought something that everyone in the whole world is thankful for, and I have lots and lots of it. And after that, she turned the big giant purse upside down, and wowie wow wow, out came money, shouted Lucille. Money, money, money. I am thankful for money. Room 1 did a gasp at that sight, and then all of our mouths fell open at once, and our eyes got bigger and bigger, and then bam, everybody dove for the money. So here's a picture. Lucille dumped all that money all in the middle of the circle, and everyone's diving to collect the money. I'm sure Mr. Scary won't let them do that. Money, we all hollered. Money, money, money. I started to grab, and it's the paper kind, I yelled. Lucille laughed real happy, and then she turned her thankful bag inside out, and more money fell out on top of us. Whee! Woohoo! Yippee! We all hollered. Mr. Scary was hollering too, I think, but it was hard to hear your teacher when everyone was money diving. Finally, he raised his voice to a loud level. It was the level that means business. Go back to your seats, he hollered. Now! Everyone stopped grabbing, and they hurried back to their seats speedy fast, except for not actually me. Instead, I kept sitting on the floor because I had a teensy problem. Mr. Scary glared his eyes at me. Junie B. Jones, did you hear me? I said go back to your seat. I nodded, real nervous. Yes, I said, only I have a teensy problem. And then I pointed at his shoe. You're actually standing on a 5. And so if you could just lift up that one shoe right there, I could get my money and I'd be on my way. I tapped on the other foot that he should lift, and then on the foot that he should lift. And then I waited and waited for him to move his foot, but it did not actually budge. Instead, yikes, I felt myself getting lifted off the floor, and I got carried back to my seat. Mr. Scary sat me in my chair, and I smiled real twitchy, and I smoothed my skirt. Okie dokie, I said, I believe I'll just sit here now and behave myself. Mr. Scary kept on standing there, and I waved my fingers at him. Alrighty then, have a good day, I said, and then he took some deep breaths. Deep breaths are what teachers do to keep from screaming. Room 1 stayed quiet as a mouse. I could hear Mr. Scary's nose whistle, but now was not the time to tell him that he needed to get a tissue, probably. Finally, he finished breathing, and then he picked up Lucille's big giant purse, and he went around the circle, and he made all of us put her money back in the purse. Sheldon hung his head. I'm sorry, he said. Free money makes me cuckoo. Herb nodded. Me too, especially the paper kind. At my house, I don't even get an allowance. Me neither, said Roger. My parents expect me to live at home for free. Lenny rolled his eyes. Oh, well, I get a whopping quarter for taking out the trash. Seriously, that's it. 1 quarter. And then he threw his hands in the air. I mean, why even bother? Mr. Scary snapped his fingers. That meant knock it off. And after that, all of us stayed quiet while Mr. Scary went to the board. And then he stood there very thinking. And then finally, he picked up the chalk and he added money to our thankful list. And after he finished, he took Lucille by the hand and he walked her to the door. Boys and girls, Lucille and I are going to take her money to the office for safekeeping. But while we're gone, I want you all to stay in your seats, and I want you to think very, very hard about what just happened here." And then he narrowed his eyes at us. "I think we all know that Lucille's family is very wealthy. They're very rich, and we are all very happy for her. But there are lots of other things to be thankful for besides money. Right, Lucille?" he said. "Right," she said back, and then she shook her head around in the air. "I'm also thankful for my shiny, gleamy hair," she said. And then she kept shaking it until Mr. Scary said to please knock it off. And then he looked at her. "Believe it or not, Lucille, there are plenty of people who don't have money or shiny hair, but they are still very happy." Lucille fluffed herself. "That's just nuts," she said. And then Mr. Scary pulled her out the door. I did what Mr. Scary said. This is chapter 5. It's called Talking It Over. I stayed in my seat, and I thought very hard about what just happened here. First, I tapped on my chin, and then I scratched my head, and I strained and strained my brain. But nothing actually came to me. And finally, I tapped on Herbert. "Okay, I give up. What just happened here? Why is Mr. Scary so mad at us?" Herb did a shrug. "I'm not really sure," he said. "We dived in a pile of money. Who wouldn't do that?" May jumped up and pointed to herself. "I wouldn't, that's who," she said. "I did not dive in the money pile. Instead, I walked around the edges with dignity, and I picked up whatever money squeezed out of the middle." Herb looked curious at her. "How much money squeezed out?" May stood there for a minute. "None," she said. "Exactly," said Herb. May sat back down, and Herb looked at the board and sighed. "I have a feeling that Mr. Scary really does not like our thankful list." May threw her head back. "Of course he hates our thankful list. Just look how," and then she says stupid, which is not a nice, "just look how stupid it is." And then she hurried to the board and she read each item out loud. Number 1, cranberry jelly in a can. Number 2, exploding biscuits. Number 3, Nipsey Doodles. Number 4, rainbow sprinkles. Number 5, toilet paper. And number 6, money. I scratched my head again. "I don't see the problem," I said. "I think we all have a nice little assortment there." May stamped her foot. "It's silly, Junie B. Jones," or Junie Jones, she doesn't call her Junie B. "Silly, silly, silly. Who in the world is thankful for toilet paper?" Sheldon raised his hand. "I am," he said. "My grandpa Ned Potts says that toilet paper was one of the greatest inventions in history, especially after they put that little cardboard rolly thing in there." I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "that cardboard rolly thing is a genius. If you put some string through it, it makes a lovely necklace for Mother's Day." Jose jumped up. "Plus, if you have 2 of them, you can make binoculars." "I make binoculars and spy on my sister, and they really, really work." May did a huffy breath. "Well, I don't care what you guys say. My mother, Mrs. Mary Murky, says that our list from yesterday is ridiculous. She says the children are never thankful for the right stuff. And so that's how come she started a brand new thankful list for us." She reached into her pocket and she pulled out the list. "My mother says that if we use this list, we will win the contest for sure." And then she unfolded it. "Who wants to hear it? Who wants to hear the brand new list that my mother started for us?" No one raised their hand, but May read it anyway. "Our thankful list by Room 1. Number 1. Room 1 is thankful for our mothers who cover us in blankets of warm, fuzzy love and make our hearts overflow with joy. Number 2, Room 1 is thankful for the happy sound of our mother's laughter as it tinkles through the air and melts like musical snow crystals in our ears. Number 3, Room 1 is thankful for May. The end. Do you think they're going to use that list, boys and girls? Thankful for May. There she is reading her mother's list. I don't think the class is going to like that one. May looked up and grinned. I added that last one myself, but I think it fits right in, she said. And then she folded her list up and she skipped back to her seat. At first, room one did not say any words. We just stared at each other with curious eyes. And then finally, Lenny spoke up. I think we should stick with our Nipsey doodles, he said. All of the children got relief in their faces. Yeah, me too, we all said. May's face looked angry at us, and she stomped her foot. I knew this would happen. I told my mother that you people wouldn't listen. And then she covered her head with her sweater. All of us ignored her. We looked at the board some more, and then all of a sudden Shirley clapped her hands together. Hey, wait, I've got an idea. Let's put something on the list that every grown-up likes. That way Mr. Scary will be happier with us, and maybe we'll get more votes from the grown-up judges. I thought for a second. Yeah, but what does every grown-up like, Shirley? I don't even have a clue. Shirley thought for a second, and then she sprang right up. I got it. It just came to me. Nature. Every grown-up loves nature. They love flowers and trees and mountains and oceans and other junk like that. I like nature. She clapped her hands. Plus, every grown-up I know loves cute little forest animals. Let's put that one on the board. Let's put cute little forest animals. She ran to get the chalk, and Sheldon quick stood up. No, wait, Shirley, wait. My Aunt Bunny is a grown-up, but she doesn't love forest animals. Last summer, she had a run-in with a raccoon. It jumped on her head, and then it just sat there like a hat. He did a shiver, for a very long time, I mean. And then Herb nodded. My mother doesn't like forest animals either. Last year, she went to a state park and a squirrel spit on her when she handed him a Frito. He looked disturbed. She said a bad word. We have it on video. Lenny raised his hand. My grandmother doesn't like the forest. Last year, we took her camping, and she got her foot stuck in a pork and beans can. He covered his face, very embarrassed. She said she was trying to make camp slippers. And after that, all of the children started telling terrible nature stories too. Shirley hung her head down and went back to her seat. I leaned over and I patted her. Don't feel bad, Shirley. Being thankful is just harder than we thought. See, said Jose. He held up his thankful bag. I brought in our TV remote. But now that seems stupid. And then he looked at Roger. I wish I had forgotten mine like you did, Raj. Roger squirmed in his chair. Well, I didn't really forget mine, Jose. I brought in a can of whipped cream, but I squirted it in my mouth before school started. Jose smiled. Who wouldn't? Just then we heard feet in the hallway. Shh! Mr. Scary's coming, Mr. Scary's coming, we whispered to each other. And then room one got speedy quiet, and Mr. Scary and Lucille walked right in the door. And ha! We did not even get caught talking. Mr. Scary took Lucille back to her chair, and she fluffed her shiny hair, and she did a little spin. I didn't even get in trouble, she said. All I had to do was put my money in the safe, and I had to promise not to throw dollars at poor people anymore. Mr. Scary frowned his eyebrows. I don't really think that was our message, Lucille. We talked about not bragging, and we said that having money doesn't make you a better person than anyone else, remember? Lucille fluffed herself some more. Nope, she said, and then she skipped in a circle and she twirled herself into her chair. Mr. Scary looked at the rest of us. Boys and girls, I am sure that you all know that diving for money was not a good decision, correct? He said. Correct, we shouted. We did not really believe that, but sometimes it's just better to say correct. Okay, good, he said. Then, if all of you promise to behave like ladies and gentlemen, we'll get on with show and tell. We promise, we shouted. Mr. Scary smiled, and we relaxed our shoulders. When a teacher smiles, everything feels better. All right, so tomorrow we will continue and see what other crazy things they come up with to be thankful for. We'll see you tomorrow.